Epstein case has always been more than one man's crimes. It is a story of power, secrecy, and the names whispered in backrooms, but rarely spoken aloud. For years, survivors have demanded answers, journalists have chased fragments of the truth, and the public has been left to speculate about what was buried inside the Epstein files. Now, Kash Patel, former White House advisor and current FBI director, has stepped into the spotlight. In testimony that stunned Washington, Patel confirmed the existence of files tied to Epstein and acknowledged the names within them. At the same time, he claimed there is no credible evidence Epstein trafficked women to others, words that both clarify and complicate one of the most infamous scandals of our time. The question is no longer whether these files exist. The question is who appears in them, why their names are there, and what it means for the powerful circles Epstein moved in. From political leaders to business elites, from princes to presidents, these documents have the potential to reshape not only the narrative of Epstein's world, but also the reputations of those who came into contact with him. Tonight, we're going deeper than the headlines. We'll examine what Kash Patel really said, the contradictions in his testimony, the lawsuits erupting in response, and the growing international fallout. Most of all, we'll explore what's inside the Epstein files, and why these names, these connections, matter more than ever. Because in a case defined by shadows, the demand for light has never been louder. What do you think? Is the case moving forward carefully, or is progress being slowed by procedural delays? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Before we dive into today's story, kindly subscribe to our Shadow Detective channel if you believe in fighting for justice. Kindly help us reach 300 subscribers, and we believe that with energy and support, we will achieve it. Let's build this community that refuses to stay silent, to stop asking the hardest question of all. But why? Every view, every comment, and every subscriber is a stand against silence and a step toward truth for those who can't fight for themselves. To understand the weight of Kash Patel's testimony, we need to step back and remember why the Epstein files matter at all. Jeffrey Epstein was not just a wealthy financier. He was a man accused of running a vast network of abuse, shielded for years by money, influence, and connections to some of the most powerful people in the world. His arrest in 2019 reignited questions that had been simmering for over a decade. Who enabled him, who protected him, and who else was involved? When Epstein died in his jail cell, the focus shifted to his files, records, notebooks, and documents that mapped out his connections. To survivors, those files represent evidence. To investigators, they are potential leads, and to the public, they are a key to understanding how far Epstein's influence reached. This is where Kash Patel enters the story. As a former Trump administration official and now the FBI director, his words carry extraordinary weight. In recent testimony, Patel acknowledged that the Epstein files exist and contain names of people tied, in one way or another, to Epstein's world. At the same time, he insisted that the Bureau has found no credible evidence Epstein trafficked women to others. That statement raises more questions than it answers. If the names are there, why aren't the connections being investigated further? And if the evidence is inconclusive, why have the files remained so tightly sealed for so long? These aren't just pages of names. They are connections, associations, and questions about power and accountability that still hang over the Epstein case. When Kash Patel took the stand in front of Congress, his words echoed through headlines across the nation. With measured confidence, Patel declared that the FBI has found no credible evidence that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked women to others. To many, it sounded like an attempt to close the door on speculation, to draw a line between rumor and fact. But Patel did not deny the existence of the Epstein files. In fact, he acknowledged them, acknowledged the names written in those pages, acknowledged the records and associations tied to Epstein's world. He admitted that the documents exist, but drew a boundary around their meaning, insisting they do not prove criminal activity beyond Epstein himself. This is where the contradiction lies. Survivors of Epstein's abuse have long demanded transparency, arguing that these files are essential to understanding the full scope of what happened. For them, the names represent more than entries in a notebook. They represent potential witnesses, enablers, or even participants who have yet to face questions under oath. Patel's cautious statement may be technically accurate from a legal perspective, but it does little to satisfy the public's demand for truth. If there's nothing to hide, why not release everything? Why keep the files sealed if they are harmless? The tension between official caution and survivor testimony keeps this case alive, and it raises a larger issue in matters of power and exploitation. Is silence a form of protection or a form of complicity? Once Kash Patel confirmed the existence of the Epstein files, the inevitable question followed: who is named inside? Though many of the documents remain sealed, fragments have surfaced, sparking debate, denial, and fierce legal battles. Among the most talked about references are former President Donald Trump and Prince Andrew of the United Kingdom. Both men have long faced scrutiny over their associations with Epstein. Trump has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing, and his legal team has aggressively pursued defamation cases against outlets suggesting otherwise. Prince Andrew, meanwhile, has struggled to distance himself from Epstein's shadow, despite reaching a settlement in a civil case years earlier. Congress now holds a collection of Epstein's records, his so-called birthday book, guest lists, and handwritten notes. These documents outline the people who crossed his path, whether through social gatherings, business dealings, or personal introductions. Each name sparks headlines, but it is crucial to remember being mentioned in Epstein's files does not equal proven involvement in his crimes. What it does mean is that questions must be asked. Who knew what? Who looked the other way? And who, if anyone, helped protect him? For survivors and investigators, the names in these files are not just gossip, they are leads. They represent potential testimony, potential evidence, and potential accountability. And for the public, they are a reminder that the Epstein case was never confined to one man. It was a network woven together by money, influence, and silence. The Epstein files don't just live in sealed court records or congressional archives. They spill into the courtroom and the political arena, reshaping reputations and fueling battles that go far beyond Epstein himself. Former President Donald Trump has launched a $15 billion defamation lawsuit against the New York Times, claiming the outlet falsely linked him to Epstein in ways that damaged his name and legacy. At the same time, Trump is pursuing legal action against the Wall Street Journal, seeking an expedited deposition of Rupert Murdoch over a disputed letter allegedly tied to Epstein. These lawsuits are not just about defamation, they are about control of the narrative, about fighting back against association with one of the most toxic scandals of our era. Melania Trump, too, has had her name pulled into the Epstein orbit. The Daily Beast recently issued a public apology after retracting an article that suggested she was introduced to Donald Trump through a modeling agent with Epstein ties. Her legal victory underscores just how sensitive and volatile any connection to Epstein has become. But the controversy isn't confined to lawsuits. In Congress, Representative Jamie Raskin has accused Trump of systematically dismantling U.S. efforts to combat sex trafficking and prosecute sex crimes during his presidency. He points to funding cuts, reallocation of resources, and weakened victim services as evidence of what he calls a retreat in the fight against exploitation. Taken together, these cases and criticisms show that Epstein's shadow is inescapable. Each courtroom battle, each political accusation keeps his name alive, sometimes even louder than the facts themselves. And while denials and defenses continue, the public is left wondering whether the truth will ever fully come to light, or whether it will remain buried beneath lawsuits, spin, and silence. The Epstein case has never been just an American scandal. Its reach is global, stretching into royal palaces, international finance, and world diplomacy. Prince Andrew remains one of the most infamous names linked to Epstein. His settlement with Virginia Giuffre ended one chapter, but his reputation never recovered. Every time new documents surface, his name resurfaces too, dragging the British monarchy into an uncomfortable spotlight. Officially, Buckingham Palace has gone silent. Unofficially, the damage has been done. But the UK is not alone. Across Europe, Epstein's ties to high-powered bankers, politicians, and academics continue to spark speculation. In France, questions still linger about Jean-Luc Brunel, the model scout and Epstein associate who was facing trial before his death. In Israel, Epstein's connections to Ehud Barak, a former prime minister, have been publicly scrutinized, despite Barak's denials of wrongdoing. And then there is the international financial web. Epstein moved money across borders with ease, maintaining bank accounts in the Virgin Islands, Europe, and beyond. Those financial trails, still only partially revealed, connect not just to individuals, but to institutions that enabled him to thrive for decades. What becomes clear is this: Epstein's power was never confined to one country, one courtroom, or one circle of influence. His reach was international, and so too must be the investigation. Anything less leaves massive blind spots in a case that demands the full light of truth. The Jeffrey Epstein case was never just about one man. It was about a network, a web of power, silence, and complicity. His death in 2019 didn't close the book. Instead, it left pages missing, names redacted, and truths waiting to be uncovered. Kash Patel's testimony may have placed new limits on what can be proven, but the names, the documents, and the unanswered questions remain. Survivors are still calling for full transparency. Lawmakers are still clashing over what should be made public. And powerful figures across the globe still live in the shadow of a scandal they cannot escape. The lawsuits, the denials, the political battles, all of it keeps Epstein's ghost alive. And the deeper we look, the more we realize this isn't just history, it's a present, ongoing struggle over who controls the narrative of truth. So we're left with one haunting question: will the Epstein files ever be fully opened, or will they remain locked away, protecting the powerful while silencing the survivors? Until that day comes, the case is far from over. The Epstein files are not just history, they are unfinished business. Each new name, each new document is a reminder that truth is still being uncovered. But here's the question: should every page be revealed, no matter who it implicates? Or are some secrets too powerful to see the light of day? Tell us what you think in the comments, and if you want to stay updated on the real story behind the headlines.